There they were, 5 Germans, machine guns there. They'd have been the ones that were killing us. And myself and then a couple of other buddies came up. And we could shoot them, we could kill them, but we didn't. We took them prisoner. And some of them looked like 15 years old, 17 years old, something like that. I couldn't do it.
And I fired 3 more times right in that same spot, right between his shoulders. And he kept running and got down almost to the bridge, and he went around behind the house. Probably a little over 50 feet down the street on the gate post of the house was a little fancy ornament, so I raised my carbine up and shot and just hit it right dead center. And I knew that it wasn't me. About that time, we looked up the street, and here came the patrol up the street, and our German friend was in front of them with his hands up in the air, and Nettleton said, "Hey, Hall, we found a friend of yours down there." I said, "What do you mean, a friend of mine?" "Well, when we found him, he was down behind a house on his knees praying, and you're the only guy we've ever seen doing that, so we thought you must know each other." And one of them jokingly said, "Tell him that he's real lucky because Hall's Dead-Eye Dick, a cowboy from Arizona." And he said, "Oh, my family have a very good friend in Mesa, Arizona."
Our job was to hold the German advance up while the rest of the troops were able to withdraw safely. Joe and I dug a 2-man foxhole. We got down in there and got a little more comfortable. And Joe says, "You're a Christian?" I said, "Yes." He says, "What church you belong to?" I says, "I'm a Mormon." He said, "Do they believe in God?" I said, "Yes, very much so." He said, "Do you know how to pray?" I said, "Yes, I grew up all my life knowing how to pray." He says, "Will you pray?" So the 2 of us knelt in that cramped foxhole, and I tried to think of what I should say to the Lord.
Prayer is a lifesaver. There's no question about it. We were going back up to our tent, and I said to my crew, "All you guys, say your prayers tonight. We need all the help we can get, please. And I don't care what religion you belong to. You believe in God, say your prayers." And my big bombardier, Ralph Cummings, he says, "Skipper, you're on the right frequency. Pray for us."
My only surviving aunt said that sometime in May of '45, she doesn't remember the day, that Mother had told her the next day that she and Dad had prayed usual vocal parental prayer, and included me, of course, and what sisters I had by then, but that then they got in bed and began to go to sleep, and Mother said, "Clarence, we've got to get out and pray again. Neil is in grave danger." And so they got out of bed, prayed again for me. I don't know which day, but I rather imagine, giving time zones and all of that it would have probably been when that artillery shelling occurred at its worst stage. I don't have any doubt that my mother knew intuitively that they needed to pray. And that kind of parenting is what, even after all these years, I hope our young men and women experience, because they will be at times in grave danger too.
I know that I should have been dead many times during the war. I should have been killed many times. We came out of Russia when I joined that special unit, and there were only 12 left from our company. I mean, you know, it could have been me.
We were flying at 27,000 feet when the instrument panel exploded in our face. We had been hit a direct flak hit. Anti-aircraft exploded within the plane, and the plane became unflyable, and I was told to be the first to go down and to bail out.
They come to the edge of the forest,
And all of a sudden, there were 3 soldiers looking at me. 2 of them were kneeling, 1 was standing, and they had rifles pointed at this noise that was coming out of the forest. And believe me, when I saw those rifle ends, the opening of the barrel, they were this big.
We received a broadcast, a radio message from General Wainwright asking all the armed forces in the Philippines to surrender for the sake of those on Bataan and Corregidor. The Japanese had all the military, the high-ranking military in Malinta Tunnel on Corregidor, and was threatening to kill them if they didn't order all the armed forces to surrender.
I had to pull that ripcord. They told us in our training, it said that doesn't mean a thing if you don't pull the string. So I pulled it, and it opened. I turned a few times and reached down and unzipped my heavy flying boots because they're hard to swim in. And about that time, this German fighter came at me, straight at me. I thought he was going to shoot me. He turned sideways like that, went past me. So close to my face, I could see his face. And he went on and never fired a shot. He saluted and went on.
The German tugboat pulled us out of the water. They used big, long grappling hooks to pull us out because our clothing was wet and we were quite heavy.
As he pulled me in, he said, "For you, the war is over."
Our first thought was, we won't surrender. We'll take off to the jungles and fight the Japanese as guerrillas rather than surrender. And then we got to thinking about maybe the Filipinos would probably turn us into the Japanese for a few pesos, and so we felt like, well, maybe the thing to do would be to surrender. The Americans will be back through here in a month, maybe 2, 3 at the most. Little did we realize what lay ahead of us. I think if we had known, I think we wouldn't have surrendered.
They put us on ships, and some of us, and we went to the States. And believe me, it was something else when I drove into the New York harbor and I saw the Statue of Liberty. What a feeling. Oh, it was unbelievable. What a feeling. The feeling of freedom that came over me, personally.